It was a sultry summer evening when the air was thick with the scent of blooming jasmine and barbecue smoke. My son Alex had decided to host a small gathering in our backyard, and among his friends was Jake, a young man with an allure that seemed to ignite something primal within me. I was in my early 40s, divorced, and had settled into a life of predictable solitude. But when I saw Jake, with his sharp jawline and easy smile, an unfamiliar excitement stirred in my core. I watched him through the kitchen window, his hands adept at handling the grill, his laughter mingling with the night. There was something about the way he moved, confident yet unassuming, that drew my gaze repeatedly. I found myself making countless trips outside, offering drinks and snacks, just to catch another glimpse of him. Each time I returned to the house, I felt a mix of exhilaration and an unsettling sense of desire that I hadn't felt in years. As the night deepened, the party thinned out until it was just Alex, Jake, and me. Excusing himself for a call, Alex left us alone under the dim patio lights. The night was warm, the kind where you could feel the humidity on your skin, making every touch seem more intimate. Our conversation was light at first, touching on the weather, the local baseball team's performance, but as the minutes ticked by, it veered into more personal territories. His eyes held mine, deep and questioning, filled with a curiosity that seemed to reach into the parts of me I kept hidden. When he leaned in to brush a stray hair from my face, the world seemed to slow. Our lips met in a kiss that was both a release and a promise, igniting a fire I knew I should resist, but couldn't. The kiss was electric, a spark that lit up every nerve ending in my body. It was brief, too brief, but it left a lingering promise of more. We pulled apart, both slightly breathless, our faces inches from each other, the air between us charged with a new, dangerous energy. Jake's voice was a low, husky whisper when he finally spoke again. I didn't expect that. Neither did I confessed, my heart racing, the guilt already creeping in, yet pushed aside by the pulsing desire. We continued talking, our words laced with the unspoken acknowledgement of what had just happened. We discussed dreams, ambitions, his love for photography, and my once-forgotten passion for painting. The conversation felt like a dance, each step bringing us closer, both physically and emotionally. When Alex returned, the spell was momentarily broken, but I could feel Jake's eyes on me, the knowledge of our secret kiss creating a bubble around us, even in company. The rest of the evening was spent in a sort of daze for me, every laugh, every look from Jake felt charged with meaning. After everyone left, I lay in bed, unable to sleep, my mind replaying the kiss, the feel of his lips, the heat of his body so close to mine. It was wrong, I knew it was wrong, but the thrill, the sheer aliveness I felt was intoxicating. From that moment, each encounter with Jake was charged with an electric tension. I orchestrated reasons for him to visit more often, suggesting movie nights where I could sit next to him in the dark, or I'd send Alex on errands, knowing Jake would stay behind. The thrill of secrecy made our stolen moments even more intense. Our kisses were no longer just kisses, they were explorations, each one deeper, more desperate. We would find ourselves in my bedroom when Alex was out, or in some hidden spot where our whispers couldn't be heard by anyone else. The physical connection was overwhelming, a flame I couldn't douse even if I wanted to. Jake was like a drug, each touch from him sending me into spirals of pleasure I hadn't known in years. His youth, his energy, contrasted with my more experienced touch, creating a dynamic that was both educational and wildly intoxicating. We learned each other's bodies, each moan and sigh, in a dance that was both beautiful and forbidden. I remember one particular evening vividly. Alex was at a late practice, and Jake had come over under the pretense of needing to borrow a book. The house was quiet, the kind of silence that amplifies every sound, every breath. As soon as he closed the door, our lips found each other with an urgency that was almost painful in its intensity. We stumbled towards the living room, our hands roaming, exploring, as if trying to memorize every curve and contour. I pushed him down onto the couch, my heart pounding with the thrill of the moment. We were both lost in the sensation, the layers of clothing between us suddenly too much. As we kissed, I felt years of restraint melting away. His hands were under my shirt, his touch sending shivers down my spine. I could feel his desire matching mine, an echo of my own need, and it was liberating. We moved together, each movement a discovery, each touch a confession. The risk of being caught added a layer of adrenaline to our passion. We had to be silent, our breaths shallow, our moans suppressed, which only heightened the intensity. Time seemed to stand still as we explored this new territory, our bodies in sync, speaking a language of lust and longing that was unspoken yet understood. Afterward, lying beside him, our bodies slick with sweat, I felt a mix of satisfaction and guilt. The afterglow was sweet, but the reality of our situation was always there, lurking at the edges of our stolen moments. Jake kissed me gently on the forehead, a gesture so tender it nearly broke me. "I should go," he whispered, and I nodded, knowing that the longer he stayed, the more dangerous it became. Watching him leave, I was left with the echo of our passion, the taste of him on my lips, and the weight of what we were doing. But even as I acknowledged the wrongness, I knew I was too far gone to stop. The desire was too potent, too consuming, and I was already planning our next encounter, craving the next touch, the next kiss, the next moment we could lose ourselves in each other, even if it was just for a fleeting moment. In the weeks that followed, the heat of our desire only grew more intense, each encounter more daring than the last. I found myself constantly orchestrating scenarios where Jake and I could be alone. I suggested Alex invite him over for study sessions, knowing full well that Alex would retreat to his room, leaving Jake and me in the living room or kitchen. One afternoon, while Alex was at a friend's house for a project, Jake came over. The house was empty except for us, the silence amplifying every sound. The moment he stepped inside, the air shifted with a palpable charge. We didn't even bother with excuses this time. The moment he closed the door, we were in each other's arms, our kisses hungry, desperate, tasting of mint and desire. His breath was warm against my neck, sending shivers down my spine. We moved through the house like shadows, the soft pad of our feet on the wooden floor, the only sound in the stillness. The scent of his cologne, something earthy and masculine, mingled with the faint aroma of lavender from my room. We ended up in my bedroom, a sanctuary where we could be most ourselves, away from prying eyes. The room was bathed in the soft glow of the late afternoon sun, filtering through the curtains and casting a golden hue over everything. Clothes were discarded swiftly, each piece hitting the floor with a silent thud that sounded like a drumbeat to my racing heart. The cool air kissed my skin, contrasting with the heat of Jake's body pressed against mine. His hands, rough yet tender, traced the contours of my body, leaving a trail of goosebumps in their wake. I remember pressing him against the wall, the coolness of the paint contrasting with the heat of our bodies. I could feel the hard muscle under his skin, the slight dampness of sweat beginning to form. I traced the lines of his body with my lips, tasting the saltiness, each kiss a testament to my longing. His moans were soft, barely audible, but they vibrated through me, igniting every nerve. We moved to the bed, a tangle of limbs, the sheets becoming a battlefield of passion. The mattress creaked slightly under our weight, the sound mingling with our quickened breaths. The fabric of the sheets felt rough against my back, the sensation heightened by the silkiness of his touch. The intensity was such that it felt like we were trying to meld into one another, to erase the boundaries between us. There was something almost poetic in our lovemaking, a rhythm that was both wild and tender. Every touch, every whispered word, was charged with an urgency that bordered on desperation. The scent of our arousal filled the room, a musky, intoxicating fragrance. We lost track of time, the world outside our bubble ceasing to exist. But with every climax, with every quiet moment afterward where we lay entwined, the weight of what we were doing pressed down on me. The guilt was there, a constant companion to our pleasure, but it was overpowered by the sheer force of our need for each other. The soft brush of his fingers through my hair, the way his chest rose and fell with each breath, it all felt so right in the moment. That afternoon was just one of many. We became adept at finding moments, stealing them from the fabric of our daily lives. Jake would come over under the guise of borrowing tools or discussing school projects with Alex, but we both knew the real reason. The risk of being caught only seemed to fuel our desire, turning each encounter into an adventure, a secret thrill. I started to live for these moments, planning my days around them. When Jake was near, my body reacted before my mind could catch up, a physical response to his proximity that was almost embarrassing in its intensity. I'd catch myself daydreaming at work, imagining the next time I could feel his skin against mine, the warmth of his breath on my neck, the way his fingers would dig into my hips. The secrecy of it all, the forbidden nature of our relationship, added layers of excitement that were addictive. We would meet in secret places, the rough bark of a tree in a secluded park bench after dark where we could taste the night air on each other's lips, an empty classroom late at night with the echo of our whispers off the walls, or my car parked in a quiet part of town where the leather seats would creak with our movements. Each place held its own story, its own memory of stolen kisses and whispered promises, the sounds of our passion muffled by the night. But with this passion came a growing fear, the fear of discovery, the fear of what this would do to my relationship with Alex, to Jake's friendship with him. Yet, these fears were whispers in the wind compared to the storm of our lust. One night, we pushed the boundaries even further. We knew Alex was at a sleepover, giving us the whole night. We didn't just have sex, we made love in every room of the house, each space becoming a canvas for our desires. The kitchen counter was cold beneath me, the chill juxtaposed against the heat of our bodies. The couch in the living room smelled faintly of leather and our combined scents. Back to my bed, the familiar comfort of the mattress, the crispness of the sheets now tangled around our legs. The night was a blur of sensations, the darkness outside mirroring the secrecy of our actions. The soft rustle of the sheets, the warmth of his body, the taste of him, salty and sweet on my tongue, all of it was intoxicating. We slept in each other's arms, only to wake up and start anew, our bodies insatiable, our minds lost in a haze of pleasure. When morning came, we cleaned up our traces, but the memories, the scent of us, a mix of sweat, sex, and our individual fragrances lingered in the air. This pattern continued, our meetings becoming more frequent, more daring. I found myself planning my life around these moments, the anticipation of Jake's touch becoming my daily motivation. I knew I was playing a dangerous game, but the stakes seemed worth it in those moments of pure ecstasy. Yet, with every encounter, the guilt grew. It was a slow creep, like ivy on a wall, eventually covering everything. I was caught between two worlds, the one where I was Alex's mother, trying to set a good example, and the one where I was a woman consumed by a passion I couldn't control. I began to question my morality, my decisions, but each time I saw Jake, all doubts vanished. It was as if he had become my drug, and I was too far gone to stop, too addicted to the high of our secret love to care about the fall. But even as we reveled in our stolen moments, the reality of what we were doing loomed large. We were playing with fire, and I knew, deep down, that sooner or later, we would get burned. Yet, the flame was too bright, too warm, and I couldn't pull away. I was in too deep, seduced by my son's friend, and we couldn't stop. The weight of our secret had grown almost unbearable, pressing down on me like a physical force every time I looked at Alex. His laughter, his trust in me, it all felt like a betrayal now. I knew I had to tell him, to come clean about Jake and me, but the thought of shattering his world, of affecting his friendship with Jake, was paralyzing. One evening, after another clandestine meeting with Jake had left me both exhilarated and guilt-ridden, I decided it was time. Alex was in his room, the soft sound of his music filtering out into the hallway. I stood outside his door, my hand hovering over the knob, my heart pounding like it wanted to escape my chest. I took a deep breath, the scent of the dinner I had just cooked, a peace offering, perhaps still lingering in the air. I knocked gently, and when Alex invited me in, his voice was warm, unsuspecting. He was sitting at his desk, books spread around him, his face lit by the glow of his lamp. The room smelled like him, a mix of his cologne and the faint mustiness of old books. "Hey, Mom, what's up?" he asked, looking up with a smile that made my heart ache. I sat on the edge of his bed, the mattress dipping slightly under my weight. My fingers twisted in my lap, the words I had rehearsed in my mind now jumbled. The room was too quiet, the silence amplifying my fear. "I need to talk to you about something serious, Alex," I began, my voice barely above a whisper, the taste of fear metallic on my tongue. Alex's smile faded, replaced by concern. "What is it? Is everything okay?" I looked at him, really looked at him, seeing the boy I had raised, the man he was becoming. His eyes were so like his father's, filled with an innocence I was about to tarnish. I felt a lump in my throat, the words sticking there, refusing to come out. I've made some choices recently, Alex, choices I'm not proud of, I managed, my voice trembling. I couldn't look at him, focusing instead on the pattern of his carpet, the way the light played off the fibers. Choices? His voice was cautious now, sensing something heavy in the air. I wanted to tell him everything, to explain how I felt so alone, how Jake had filled a void I didn't even know existed. But every time I thought of the words, I saw his face, the betrayal, the hurt. I couldn't bear to be the cause of that. "It's about someone close to us," I said, my voice barely holding steady. "I've grown close to someone, and I fear it might change how you see them." His brows furrowed, confusion clear. "Who, Mom?" I hesitated, the name Jake on the tip of my tongue, but I couldn't push it out. The thought of him losing his friend, of me being the reason for that loss, was overwhelming. I shook my head, my eyes filling with tears. "Never mind, it's not important," I backtracked, my resolve crumbling. I wanted you to know that I might have been, not myself lately. But it's nothing for you to worry about." Alex moved from his desk to sit beside me on the bed, his arm wrapping around my shoulders. The warmth of his touch, so innocent, so trusting, broke something inside me. "Mom, whatever it is, we can talk about it. You know you can tell me anything," he said, his voice filled with a maturity that made me feel even worse. I shook my head again, tears now streaming down my face. "No, it's okay. I just need to handle some things on my own. I don't want to burden you with my mistakes." He hugged me tighter, his scent of youth and soap comforting and painful at the same time. "You're never a burden, Mom." We sat there for a while, the silence stretching between us, filled with unspoken words and hidden truths. I couldn't bring myself to say it, to admit the affair with Jake. The cost was too high, and I couldn't let my selfishness ruin his relationship with his friend. That night, I left his room feeling more alone than ever, the confession still trapped inside me. I knew I had to end things with Jake, for Alex's sake, but the thought alone was like a knife in my chest. How could I go back to that emptiness, knowing what I had with Jake? But for my son, for his happiness, I had to find a way. I spent the night in my room, the darkness around me a mirror to my internal turmoil. I lay there, the sheets cold against my skin, the silence of the house a stark reminder of the solitude I was choosing. The decision was made, I would keep this secret, protect Alex's innocence, even if it meant losing a part of myself in the process.